My name is Nyla Alice, and I am 30 years old. By the time the text came in, the apartment was as quiet as a held breath. Leo. Babe, can you crash at Tom's tonight? My business mentor is flying in from LA, and we need the space to plan and film. Big opportunity. Please don't make it weird. Love you. I read it twice, then again, until the words lost shape and only the temperature remained. Cold. A careful cold that starts at the ribs and spreads outward. It wasn't jealousy. It was arithmetic. The numbers of our life didn't add up. I pay for the entire apartment. Mortgage, utilities, internet, groceries, the boring invisible scaffolding that keeps a life upright. Leo moved in temporarily almost 2 years ago after a roommate bailed, and temporarily molted into permanence like ivy across brick. At first I told myself it worked. I run an e-commerce logistics company. He handled some social posts, a few customer replies, a spreadsheet here and there. I let myself fall in love with the idea of building something together. Then, together, turned into me holding the building while he tried on identities like jackets. Content creator, ring lights on my card, 4 videos, silence. Kin care reseller, boxes in the closet, half opened. Brand coach, a website with borrowed phrases and a booking link no one used twice. Lately, he spoke in reverent italics about a mentor in Los Angeles, someone who understood his vision but didn't leave much in the way of specifics. When I asked what exactly they were planning, he slid into fog. You don't get the space yet, Nyla. We're incubating. Incubating what exactly? I typed back, Sure, I'll be out within the hour. Good luck with your meeting. Then I set the phone down and finally listened to the noise inside my head. I wasn't angry. Not then. Anger needs heat. What I felt was room temperature clarity. For a month, I'd been treating my doubts like a side project. Nights spent checking filings, ownership records, contracts, employee NDAs. My name, everywhere it mattered. The company I had built out of sleeplessness and UPS labels belonged to me. I had asked Leo 3 times to formalize any role he wanted. Each time he laughed, said paperwork kills his creativity. I trust you to handle the business stuff. He trusted me to keep the lights on. I could do that. I could also turn them off. I pulled 3 flat-packed boxes from the hallway closet, the good kind that doesn't sag. In the bedroom, I sat cross-legged on the rug and started with the closet shelf. Serums, unopened bundles of organic masks he'd sworn would be a booming drop, a camera body cushioned in a hoodie, a halo light with 1 cracked hinge. I wrapped each item in craft paper, labeled every box with blue masking tape, wrote an inventory in small, neat handwriting. Not revenge, record. If this twisted into lawyers, I wanted the truth to be boring and unavoidable. On the desk, my company laptop waited, the one I'd let him use when he swore he needed a temporary workstation for client calls that never quite had clients. I signed in, exported anything he'd touched to a drive named archive/Leo, and revoked access to accounts that bore my liability. 2-factor. New passwords. System logs clipped to a folder. My heartbeat stayed steady, like I was packing for a trade show. Every few minutes, the apartment coughed up a memory. Leo, barefoot, asking me if logistics is just like a vibe, right? Leo holding his phone at dinner, angling a selfie while I angled a P&L. Leo promising he could own customer journey, then forgetting to answer 500 emails. My phone blinked again. Leo, you're amazing. Mentor's legit. Please don't be weird about strangers in our space. The word landed like a paper cut. He loved that word, even though the deed said something else. I'd bought the apartment 3 weeks ago from my landlord, Mr. Delgado. I'd been saving the conversation to frame our next phase like adults. The down payment came from my business account, exactly as the bank allowed, and I had the inked mortgage with my name only. Mr. Delgado answered on the second ring. Ms. Alice, he said, warm. Everything good? Mostly, I said, steady. I'll be staying elsewhere tonight. Leo will need to collect his things. He's a guest, not a tenant. He's never paid rent, never signed a lease. I'll follow up by email. Understood, he said, the kind of word that locks a door and clicks it twice. Back at the kitchen counter, I wrote the note like I wish someone had written to me a year ago. Per your request, I'm staying elsewhere tonight. Your belongings are packed and labeled in the living room. Please arrange to remove them by Friday. You aren't listed on the lease or on any company documentation, so this transition should be straightforward. Take care of yourself. Nyla. I set the note on the marble where the afternoon light found it. The apartment held its breath again. My phone trembled. Leo. Actually, can you be out till morning? We'll be filming late. It's huge, Nyla. A laugh tried to escape, and I swallowed it. I looked around at the life I'd been both funding and apologizing for. The mug with a chipped rim, the vision board he'd made out of other people's screenshots, the stack of shipping labels that represented real customers with real addresses and real expectations. I had never failed. I took photos of every labeled box and attached them to an email to myself and to my lawyer friend with the subject line, Documentation, Leo Move Out. Not because I wanted a fight, because I wanted to be done fighting. On my way out, I saw it on the console table, an old photo of my parents' porch, 2 girls on the steps. One of them, me, knotting a friendship bracelet. The other, Talia, my older sister. The only person who ever spoke to me about equity with the kind of intensity that burns. 4 years since we last spoke after she'd tried to wedge herself into the cap table at the worst possible moment, telling investors I wasn't mature enough to scale. 4 years since she mailed me a contract at Christmas like a gift wrapped in smiley face paper. I picked up the photo and felt something itch under my skin. Not a memory, exactly. A tone. Leo's mentor voice, when he described strategy, had the same cadence as Talia on a tear. Trust me, you're too close to see. Let experts in. Stop being controlling. It was probably coincidence. LA is full of mentors who love the smell of control framed as freedom. Still, the thought snuck in and sat down, legs crossed, patient. Outside, the city was in that blue hour where everything looks briefly cinematic. I locked the door, slid the key into my coat pocket, and headed down the stairs. My overnight bag felt light compared to what I wasn't carrying anymore. At Tom's place, a friend from a lifetime ago who'd stayed uncomplicated, I let the quiet fold around us. We ordered takeout, and I found I was hungry for the first time in days. The relief of a decision is its own kind of appetite. By 7, the messages started. Leo. Thanks again. You're the best. Leo. 8:11. Wait, where are my skincare boxes? Leo. 8:12. Did you change the laptop password? Leo. 8:22. You're being dramatic. One night for my career, and you turn it into control. Leo. 9:03. Mentor says this is a red flag. Leo. 9:04. Do not come back tonight. Tom glanced over, but I didn't need comfort. I needed distance. I put the phone face down and tasted my food like it was teaching me something about being alive. At 9:47, a notification that didn't fit the pattern, a new message request. The preview showed a name I hadn't seen on my screen in 4 years, not directly. Talia. No, not Talia. A mutual contact forwarding a screenshot, the way gossip travels when it grows legs. Forwarded. Didn't realize Leo was with your sister. He told me they're roommates sharing expenses. Also says she's giving him a hard time about acknowledging his role as co-founder. T. The restaurant clatter inside my head stopped. The arithmetic changed. I didn't answer. I stared at the message until the silence in my chest became a sound. I was wrong about how simple this would be. That much was clear. The pattern wasn't coincidence. It had a signature. At 2:03 a.m., the phone lit up again. Leo, frantic now, words tumbling. Mentor thinks you have control issues around successful people. This is actually psychological. It should have stung. Instead, my mind filmed the words and played them side by side with a voice from years ago on a porch. You're scared of scale because you need control to feel safe, Nyla. The same script, the same chords, a different instrument. Morning would be interesting. When morning came, it wasn't light that woke me. It was noise. My phone buzzed nonstop, the sound of a life unspooling message by message. Leo, 7:06 a.m. You really crossed a line, Nyla. Leo, 7:08 a.m. Talia says you're violating intellectual property rights. We can fix this if you calm down. Leo, 7:12 a.m. Please answer me. Don't make me escalate. That last word, escalate, was exactly the one my sister used the night our partnership dissolved. I could almost hear her clipped managerial tone. If you won't cooperate, I'll escalate. My stomach tightened. I opened my laptop, the one he hadn't touched, and started connecting dots. Leo had begun using new phrases months ago: scaling potential, equity share, growth infusion. Words that had once belonged to Talia's vocabulary, not his. At first, I'd thought it was flattery, that he was finally taking an interest in the business. But it hadn't been learning. It was coaching. I called Mr. Delgado again, just to steady the logistics. He confirmed that Leo hadn't come by or requested access. I changed the building code this morning, Ms. Allison, he added, for safety. I thanked him and hung up. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old family email thread, the one that ended 4 years ago with Talia's last message. One day you'll realize collaboration isn't control. I hope it's not too late. I scrolled up and found our final argument. It wasn't about love or betrayal. It was about ownership. She wanted part of my startup because she'd helped me believe in myself. I told her belief wasn't equity. She said I'd regret freezing her out. And now her voice was back in my life, ventriloquized through my boyfriend. That evening, Leo's texts shifted from pleading to smug. Talia and I had a great call. She's willing to mediate. She says you're emotional and scared of success. Let's meet tomorrow. She'll join by video. It hit me then. She doesn't know I know. I hadn't confirmed it. Leo thought I was simply being difficult. Talia believed she was invisible, the genius behind the curtain. I decided to keep it that way. I spent that night compiling every relevant record: company formation docs, bank statements, screenshots of payments, correspondence logs. I color-coded folders: blue, ownership; red, proof of sole funding; gray, digital footprints. If they wanted a performance, I'd let them perform, for evidence. But exhaustion hit like fog. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the single photo I'd saved from the old apartment, me and Talia on our parents' porch, our smiles barely similar. I whispered into the stillness, "You couldn't build it, so you decided to steal it." The words tasted both cruel and true. The next day, 9 a.m. sharp, I walked back into my apartment. Leo was there. Of course he was, lounging on my couch in my t-shirt, scrolling through his phone. He looked up with the mild irritation of a man interrupted while relaxing in a hotel lobby. "Oh, good, you're here," he said, as though he owned time. "I've been thinking about how to make this smooth. You were emotional Tuesday. I forgive you." "Forgive me?" I repeated, setting my bag down gently. He nodded like a therapist. "Talia says conflict is inevitable when creative partners aren't aligned. She's drawing up something called a retroactive equity memorandum. It gives me 30% of the company in recognition of my conceptual input." The sentence was so absurd I almost laughed. "Retroactive equity," I said slowly, "for concepts you can't even describe?" His smile faltered. "She says the court recognizes emotional labor and non-financial contributions." "She would." He blinked. "What?" I stepped closer, calm enough to scare even myself. "Common law marriage isn't recognized in this state, and you can't claim equity for vibes and pep talks. You've never contributed a cent. I have every record." He frowned, defensive now. "Talia warned me you'd intimidate me with technicalities. That's your pattern." I tilted my head. "And how would Talia know my patterns, Leo?" For the first time, he hesitated. The silence filled the room like fog rolling in. Then, realizing too late what he'd revealed, he said, we just talked about strategy." "Strategy," I echoed. "That's an interesting word for what this is." He tried a different tactic. "Look, we can make this right. You're overwhelmed, and she's only trying to help. We're all family here." "Family?" I whispered. "Funny you'd say that." He blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" I picked up the photo from the console, the one I'd left behind. 2 sisters on a porch. "Tell your mentor I said hello." He went pale. You knew?" "I do now." He opened his mouth again, but the tone of my voice stopped him cold. "Leo, you have until Sunday to remove every box from this apartment. After that, Mr. Delgado changes the locks." He sputtered something about lawyers, defamation, psychological abuse, words he clearly didn't understand. I walked to the door, held it open, and waited. The authority and stillness can be louder than any scream. When he realized I wasn't bluffing, he grabbed his bag and stomped past me, muttering that I'd regret this, that Talia says the truth always surfaces. "Good," I said. "Let it." By nightfall, my phone erupted again. Not calls this time, but notifications. Leo had gone public. He'd posted a carefully written thread on Instagram, complete with studio-lit photos of him looking devastated. I was emotionally and financially exploited by a partner who erased my contributions and threw me out of our home. When I tried to claim my rights, she locked me out of everything we built together. Please share this story so other men can recognize controlling behavior disguised as ambition. Within hours, the post spread. Mutual friends DM'd me screenshots. Comments poured in. People love a victim when he looks photogenic. The worst part? He'd attached blurred proof. Snippets of documents with my company logo. Anyone scrolling could mistake it for truth. My stomach turned, but my mind didn't freeze. I started a folder titled Defense Timeline and dragged in every relevant screenshot, receipt, and communication. Then I turned my phone on silent. Because somewhere between the hashtags and the sympathy, I knew who had scripted this. The language was textbook Talia, polished outrage, strategic vulnerability, and moral vocabulary designed to sting. But if my sister wanted a war, she was about to learn. I don't play battles I haven't already mapped. The next morning, the world looked unchanged. Sunlight on blinds, the smell of burnt toast from the cafe downstairs. But inside my phone, it was chaos. Hundreds of comments, a dozen missed calls from friends trying to check in, and then a DM from a name that almost didn't register at first, Jessica Chen. Jessica. Hi, Nyla. You don't know me, but I'm Leo's ex. I think I can help you. It's about him and your sister. I sat very still, my thumb hovering over the message. Leo's ex, my sister. Together in the same sentence. That combination of names had no right to exist. By mid-morning, I was sitting in my car outside a quiet cafe on Hillcrest Avenue, watching people with simpler problems drink simpler coffee. Jessica slid into the seat across from me, clutching a folder thick enough to make my stomach twist. She looked tired. Not hostile, not pitying, just tired. I know what he's doing to you, she said, because he tried the same thing with me. I didn't speak, I just let her talk. Leo and Jessica had dated before me. Briefly, casually, she said, but enough for her to see the early patterns. Charm that disguised dependency, entitlement wrapped in soft words. When they broke up, he told her she'd regret letting go of a visionary. Then, 6 months later, he met me. She opened the folder. Dozens of printed screenshots, text threads, photos, email drafts, all between Leo and Talia. The first message was dated 7 months ago. Talia, she's brilliant but naive. If we guide her, we can structure a buy-in once she trusts you fully. Leo, she already does. I can make her believe we're a team. Talia, good. Keep reinforcing that she's overextended. When she doubts herself, we offer the solution. Leo, what if she resists? Talia, then we position it as partnership therapy. Emotional language works better than business talk. My vision tunneled for a second. The text on the page shimmered. Jessica's voice cut through softly. I found these on Leo's iCloud when he left his laptop at my place last year. I didn't think much of it then, but when his post went viral, I recognized your sister's name. There it was in black and white. Every manipulation, every phrase I'd second-guessed myself over. They'd built a script together. That night, I forwarded everything to my lawyer. He called back within 15 minutes. Jesus, Nyla, he muttered. This is coordinated fraud and defamation. Sit tight. Don't respond publicly yet. Let them dig their hole. His advice was calm, but my body felt electrified. The betrayal wasn't just professional anymore. It was genetic. I thought about Talia's face when she used to talk about fairness. How she'd say, May, you always get the spotlight, Nyla. You don't even know what it's like to build in someone else's shadow. And maybe this entire spectacle was her answer to that resentment. By the next day, things escalated. Leo's post had been shared by 3 local influencer accounts. I woke to a headline on a lifestyle blog. Rising brand strategist alleges financial abuse by business partner. No names, but everyone in our circle knew. But then something shifted. One of the first comments under the blog came from an old client of Leo's, a skincare brand owner I vaguely remembered from his coaching phase. This guy scammed me. Charged $800 for recycled templates from YouTube. Don't believe him. Then another comment. Then another. The narrative started to crack. People weren't sure anymore who the villain was. I didn't post anything yet. I didn't need to. Jessica was already talking to her contacts. She'd sent everything, including the messages between Leo and Talia, to 2 reporters she trusted. That evening, she texted me. I think you'll want to see this. Attached was a screenshot of an email thread between Talia and a venture capital firm she consulted for. She'd been pitching them a promising logistics company led by her protege. My company, my work, my clients. She was trying to sell access using Leo as her entry point. It wasn't just betrayal, it was theft dressed up as mentorship. I spent the next morning in my lawyer's office, surrounded by paperwork and evidence that looked like someone else's life. He was already drafting cease and desist letters. Once we send these, he said, they'll either lawyer up or fold. My bet's on fold. I nodded, but my heart wasn't celebrating. It was grieving. Because every manipulative text, every cold sentence from Leo had Talia's fingerprint on it. The sister who used to braid my hair before school had turned into someone who weaponized affection. That night, I stood at my window overlooking the city. The lights looked so calm, like the world wasn't filled with people rewriting each other's stories for profit. I whispered her name once, like a goodbye. Then I turned my phone back on. Leo had posted again, trying to spin Jessica's leak as doctored screenshots. But the internet had already decided. The comments beneath were no longer kind. Wait, isn't that his ex exposing him? Where's this guy's proof? His mentors, his girlfriend's sister? What the? The tone had changed. For the first time, I felt the air shift in my favor. But I also knew Talia wouldn't let go quietly. If she'd spent 4 years crafting this plan, she wouldn't crumble over a few leaked texts. She'd double down. She'd make it personal. And that's exactly what happened next. It started with silence, the kind that hides a storm. 3 full days without a word from Talia or Leo. Too quiet, too deliberate. The internet had moved on to new gossip, but I knew them. They weren't gone. They were reloading. On the 4th morning, it arrived. A long, immaculately written post appeared on Talia's professional LinkedIn, titled, "When Family and Business Collide, the Emotional Cost of Founding with Loved Ones." No names, but every sentence pointed directly at me. She described a younger sibling who grew resentful of guidance, a boyfriend manipulated into emotional labor, and a cautionary tale about women in leadership losing compassion. It was clinical, sanitized, polished, and it burned. Within hours, it was being shared by business circles that once respected me. A subtle war waged in boardrooms and comments, people choosing sides based on tone alone. But the thing about Talia, she'd always underestimated receipts. That same afternoon, Jessica called. Her voice was shaky, half in disbelief, half glee. "You might want to check your email," she said. "I just got something from a journalist friend, internal documents from Talia's firm." When I opened the file, my breath hitched. Emails, contracts, and client notes, all showing Talia using my company's name and metrics in her proposals, falsely claiming partial ownership and inflating her mentorship success rate using my numbers. She had literally built her credibility on my work. My lawyer's response was swift. "Perfect. This isn't just defamation, it's professional misconduct. We'll send cease and desist letters to both her firm and every client she used your data with. Let's make this loud." I didn't want loud, but sometimes silence is mistaken for guilt, and I was done being quiet. That evening, I finally spoke publicly. Not on Instagram, not with tears or theatrics. I posted a single thread on LinkedIn, the same battlefield she chose. When truth is weaponized as branding, receipts are the antidote. I attached documents showing my company's formation date, signatures, ownership, and registered IP, all predating Leo or Talia's involvement. I ended the post with, "Integrity doesn't need to shout, but it will defend itself." No accusations, no names, just evidence. By morning, my post had tripled her engagement, not because I was louder, but because I was verifiable. Comments poured in, people dissecting her vague story, realizing how much didn't add up. The dominoes began to fall. A small business podcast featured both stories side by side. The host, curious, did what internet detectives do best, cross-referenced. Within hours, screenshots of Talia's stolen metrics were circulating online, followed by messages from 2 of her clients confirming she'd misrepresented herself. By day's end, her firm suspended her account pending review. But Leo, he wasn't done. When predators lose their stage, they turn personal. He started messaging my friends privately, weaving a softer story. She's spiraling, he wrote. I'm worried about her. She's vindictive now. Maybe she needs help. It might have worked if Jessica hadn't intercepted one message meant for her, too. Leo to Jessica. If we push the mental health angle, people will back off her outburst faster. It's safer than legal threats. Talia says framing is everything. That was the moment the pity mask cracked. Jessica forwarded it to me and to a journalist covering online reputation scams. By nightfall, the headline read, Exposes Unfold Business Coach and Partner Conspired to Discredit Founder Through Fabricated Abuse Allegations. Leo tried to deny it, but the screenshots were everywhere. Every strategy he'd shared with Talia now lived online forever. I wish I could say I felt triumphant, but I didn't. Watching people destroy themselves doesn't feel good, even when they tried to destroy you first. Mostly I felt tired, a bone-deep exhaustion that only betrayal can leave behind. Then, the apology requests started. Talia's assistant called first, her voice small and trembling. She wants to talk, Nyla. Privately. She says she's sorry. I said, tell her she can send it in writing, and she did. I wanted to help you. I told myself I was protecting your company from stagnation, but the truth is I wanted control. I couldn't stand watching you succeed where I'd failed. Leo was just a tool I used to feel powerful. I'm sorry, Nyla. You didn't deserve this. I read it twice. It was clinical, even in remorse. More confession than contrition. My lawyer told me she was negotiating a quiet settlement with her firm to avoid legal fallout. Leo, meanwhile, was dropped by his management agency and exposed for defrauding multiple clients. His social media disappeared overnight. Weeks passed. I rebuilt my company's public image, one conversation at a time. Clients returned. New ones came. The noise faded. And one afternoon, standing in my office surrounded by boxes labeled new contracts, I realized something. I had lost a relationship, a sister, and a reputation, all in one storm. But I'd also gained something stronger, clarity. Trust is not built by time, it's built by truth. And when someone hides behind love to steal your foundation, the best revenge isn't shouting. It's thriving so quietly that they can hear your peace echo. Still, closure has a way of testing you. 3 months later, I got a small envelope forwarded from my old address. Handwriting I knew instantly. Talia. I don't expect forgiveness. Therapy's teaching me about patterns of control, how I mirrored the same dominance I accused you of. I lost everything trying to prove I deserved more. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I folded the letter neatly and slipped it into a drawer with my business certificates. Some things don't need an answer. Silence, when earned, is its own reply. That night, I opened a bottle of wine and sat by the window overlooking the city that had once felt like a battlefield. Across the street, someone laughed, a sound full of uncomplicated joy. I let it fill the space. And for the first time in a long time, I whispered to myself, I'm free. 6 months later, the apartment finally felt like mine again. No ghosts in the corners, no traces of Leo's ring lights or Talia's words buzzing in my head. Just the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the soft shuffle of my slippers on the wooden floor, and the distant city that kept moving no matter how many lives inside it collapsed and rebuilt. My company, Nyla Logistics, had just hit its first million in revenue. The milestone didn't feel explosive. It felt earned. We'd signed 3 major contracts from clients who discovered us because of the viral fiasco. We like people who survive storms, one of them told me during onboarding. It means you're real. I'd smiled at that, because if survival was a brand, I had built it from the ground up. I hadn't heard from Leo since the legal letters went out. Last I knew, he was living back with his parents in Nevada, running what he called a Healing Through Storytelling podcast. All 10 episodes of it before the account vanished. He'd emailed me once, a short line that read, I'm sorry for letting her influence me. I thought I was proving my worth. No subject line, no follow-up. I never replied. Forgiveness isn't a debt to collect. It's just a decision to stop keeping the ledger open. And Talia, she did what people like her always do after exposure, rebrand. According to LinkedIn, she's now a consultant for emotional intelligence and business partnerships. The irony almost made me laugh. Almost. She reached out again a few weeks ago with a message that read, I hope one day we can rebuild some version of family. I'm learning to separate envy from ambition. It wasn't angry. It wasn't manipulative. Just hollow. Like she wanted absolution more than reconnection. I let it sit unread, because some stories don't need sequels. Still, I've thought about her sometimes, late at night, when the city hum quiets and the human heart insists on remembering. We were girls once, building cardboard empires on the porch, promising to rule the world together. Maybe, in a way, we both kept that promise. She ruled through control. I ruled through endurance. But only one kingdom lasted. Life now looks deceptively simple. My mornings start with black coffee and sunlight over spreadsheets. Afternoons with small victories, shipments cleared early, partnerships signed, clients who pay on time. And evenings, well, there's Ethan. We met 3 months ago at a logistics conference in Portland. Not the cinematic kind of meeting, just two professionals comparing shipping delays over lukewarm coffee. He's grounded, kind, the sort of man who doesn't make me shrink to fit inside his comfort. He has his own apartment, his own business, his own opinions. When the check comes, he insists we take turns. He doesn't flinch when I talk about contracts or equity. He listens like my ambition isn't a threat, just part of the weather. It's early, but I've learned that peace doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It comes quietly, like dawn through curtains. Sometimes I still receive messages from strangers, women mostly, who found my story online through that final podcast expose. They write things like, "I thought I was crazy until I heard your story. You made me realize that love without respect is just dependency with good lighting. Thank you for showing that walking away isn't losing, it's choosing clarity." I always answer them. Briefly, honestly. Because if there's one thing this entire nightmare taught me, it's that truth isn't something you owe the people who hurt you. It's something you gift to the people who still believe they're alone. A few days ago, a small envelope arrived at my office. No return address. Inside was a folded photograph. Two girls on a porch, sunlight in their hair. Me and Talia, before ambition had teeth. On the back, in her handwriting. "You were right. I should have built my own instead of trying to take yours." I didn't cry. I didn't frame it. I placed it gently in the same drawer as her first apology letter. Not out of sentimentality, but out of record keeping. Because the past doesn't vanish. It just stops dictating the present. Last night, standing by the window again, that same spot where I'd once watched my world unravel, I realized something. Survival isn't the opposite of betrayal. It's the evolution that betrayal forces. The city glowed below, indifferent and alive. Somewhere out there, people were starting new businesses, new relationships, new mistakes. And maybe that's the point. We keep rebuilding, learning, refusing to be defined by who tried to break us. I whispered into the glass, like a benediction only I needed to hear. "Thank you for showing me exactly who you are." Then I smiled, turned off the lights, and let the dark hold me, not as something to fear, but as proof that I'd survived the worst of it. Because sometimes the best revenge is living well, breathing freely, and knowing the story finally belongs to you.